Hi, I'm Marlene Gaybauer from the Geek and Review, and I have Nikki Shaver at Legal Technology Hub. And Nikki, you're going to tell us about your portfolio management feature, right?
That's right, Marlene. It's a brand new feature. So, since 2023, especially, the legal tech market has ballooned in size and complexity. I wonder why. Um, as you know, Marlene, the number of startups entering the market continues to grow at a very consistent pace. From our tracking metrics, we know it's growing at about 100 new startups a quarter, with a total number of solutions in legal tech now numbering well above 3,000 globally. So it used to be the case that law firms would have a dedicated resource in their innovation or IT departments whose job was at least partly devoted to tracking the market, mapping new startups, reviewing this against the firm's own existing portfolio and project goals. But that doesn't really make sense anymore. Internal teams are already so busy on their own projects, and we have a dedicated team that does exactly this. Legal Tech Hub has been dedicated to doing this for over 5 years now. And our new portfolio management feature is designed to make it easier than ever for buyers to use Legal Tech Hub's data to manage their own portfolio of legal technology solutions. It allows you to select the solutions in your current tech stack from across the Legal Tech Hub directory and add them to your portfolio management tab, which is in your account on Legal Tech Hub. You can also add solutions you're interested in watching and those you've looked at or reviewed but decided not to proceed with. You can easily move solutions between those categories and add notes like waiting until this product is SOC 2 certified. Once you add a solution to any of those categories in your portfolio, a bonus is that you will also be notified if the vendor adds an announcement to their listing, like, we just got SOC 2 certified. So this feature will make it even easier for firms to manage their tech stack against the market, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful tool for very busy professionals trying to keep track of all the changes that are happening in the industry. So thank you.
Thanks, Marlene. We certainly hope so.
Welcome to the Geek and Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gaybauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert. And this week we are thrilled to welcome someone who's been a dear friend of mine for many, many years. And I love how she describes her career path as she has Goldilocks her way through her career here, having tried multiple roles to find exactly what it is that helps her drive change in our profession. And we were talking before, she's been in academia, she's been in the ALSP, she's been in law firms, she's been everything.
She's done it all. She's done it all. Yeah. Anastasia Boyko, I mean, as you said, she has an incredible background. So
Yeah.
she's a Yale-trained tax lawyer. She's managed alternative legal talent at Axiom. She's served as the inaugural dean of the Psi Leadership Program at Yale Law School, and recently operated as the chief innovation officer at the University of Utah's S.J. Quinney College of Law.
Yeah, that just scratches the surface here.
I
So,
know we couldn't fit everything.
and Anastasia is a legal futurist, a lawyer Sherpa, and is the host of the PLI podcast on how to navigate law school. So, Anastasia, thank you very much for being here. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Podcasters interviewing podcasters, my favorite.
I know it's very meta.
So Anastasia, like you and I recently attended the Women Plus AI 2.0 Summit at Vanderbilt, and one of the core focuses was the trap. So the narrative that women use AI less than men, resulting in an AI competence penalty. Now we did have breakout groups, and the breakout group that you attended basically came up with principles in regard to this. And so, you took the initiative to synthesize those from our Maxi Spark session and share them. So for like law firm leaders listening, what's the most vital principle that emerged from that session? And, how can they actually actualize this on Monday morning so that AI adoption doesn't exacerbate structural inequalities?
Yeah, I mean, great question. That conference was really I think, life-changing, which is weird to say, for those of us who attend lots of conferences. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was the right group of people. I think it was organized very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were discussing the most important parts. And when I was reflecting on the session that you facilitated, as well as the session that Heidi Brown and I did on how to reimagine the workplace, last night I was thinking about this, and I think a lot of it for law firms is sort of stop doing what everybody else is doing, right? Like that's the operating principle for many
No,
law firms
sorry.
is like,
Sorry, that's all we know. That's all we know what to do.
and I understand it, right?
What's the competition doing?
No, but a lot of our habits are precedent based, right? We're trained this way in law school. So not only are we trained to think this way in analysis, but we're trained to operate this way in our organizations. And I was reflecting on this last night precisely about that, right? Like, why do we keep wanting to do what somebody else is doing in a world where all of the rules are changing? It's all uncertain right now, right? But we still want to keep going back to the old principles of how law firms run, how law firms make money, how they grow. And that's just not true. Like the last 3 years have shown us a great deal of disruption in the old ways of doing things. And so I think my big takeaway from that conference is we really got to get out of that mindset of, well, how have we always done it before? Who else is doing it that way? And so I think the better operating principle is, what do you want to do with your firm, right? Like, what is the actual future of your firm? What do you want to be doing for your clients? And then structure the activities along that path. And that might be an operational change, or that might be a technological change, and that could be an AI automation or an upgrade. But really, you need to have intention. You need to be deliberate about where it is that you're going with your firm versus being reactive and operating out of fear, which is what I think a lot of law firms are doing right now.
Yeah, but we love to race for second place, so we like to see what others are doing, and then quickly be a fast follower behind that. And it's to borrow the old saying, how can you tell millionaires are doing something wrong? Um, just I think, how do you approach this to say, hey, look, right now is the absolute best time to get outside your comfort zone and try something new? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it, but I think a lot of it is we don't do really good strategic planning in the law firm setting, right? Like some firms may do it better than others, but we're not looking out 3 years. We're not being necessarily disciplined about the strategies that we've committed to. People change directions constantly depending on, again, fear. And so I think a lot of this is figuring out how to get out of that mindset and get into a much more strategic planning one around what you and your firm want to do, including the talent that you're hiring, right? Like firms are doing the same thing with innovation as they're hiring into their orgs. What did this person do for a few years at my peer firm? Well, what does that have to do with what your firm wants to do? Right. And I think I take your point very valid, right? Like people don't necessarily feel the pain just yet. I think that's why there's been a reticence in the speed of adoption. As someone who has been in all of these communities at once, right? I have this very weird everything, everywhere, all at once kind of mindset when I look at legal. The things I'm hearing from in-house leads terrify me if I was a law firm leader. And they're not paying enough attention, right? They'll pick up a few of them and a few articles here and there, but I'm like, your customer is trying very hard to eliminate their dependence on you. Like that should scare you. They also probably don't like you that much, right? They're coming to you out of necessity. No, my friend always says this, and it just hits me over the head each and every time. How often are your clients inviting you to play golf, right? Or inviting you to spend time? Like, how good are your relationships really? Or are they coming to you and paying your fees because they have to? And when someone is doing that out of necessity, they're going to figure out some way to not do it out of necessity when their business teams are pushing them to eliminate that with tools that currently can get them to do that internally, right? So that, coupled with clients who aren't lawyers in legal departments, who are comfortable with good enough from what they're getting from the models, and it keeps getting better, like the cliff is coming. And so I don't want to try to take advantage of that fear, but it's a very realistic fear. That fear should be happening for you when you're making decisions. Not am I getting left behind with my competition, but are my clients going to leave me very soon?
Yeah, because it's like we
Well,
keep saying, it's like relationships, relationships, relationships. Like,
Yes.
it's really about that because the technology is just getting that good. But, I also wonder like how much of this sort of indecision is like the noise, all of the noise that's in the market. This from a strategic standpoint, there's investments of, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars, and like this is all very new for most people, and making that wrong step could be, seriously problematic. And I think, you have that leadership where it's just like it is fear, but, is the noise contributing to that, and kind of how can they kind of like block that out?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear around uncertainty. So we don't do a good job of making decisions in a time of uncertainty. And right now we're operating by soon to be new principles, right? So we're watching the old principles go away. The new principles are forming. And so we're in this really strange time. I was doing a guest lecture at Penn Law yesterday, and we were talking about access to justice and technology in the future. And the students asked such great questions, right? They were pointing out all of this uncertainty, all of these issues about access to justice and AI and the challenges there. And I said, yes, right? All of that is true. And you need to figure out how to operate in uncertainty. As the bridge is falling behind you, as you're running across it, you need to be laser focused on where you're going, right? Like, what is your intentional destination? And then what can you do in the current moment with the ground that is stable underneath you? And these are the same kinds of skills that we developed during COVID. Like, I remember organizing a salon of VIPs of our alumni at Yale and talking about decision making in times of uncertainty. Like, these were moguls who'd been able to build incredible businesses and initiatives, and they didn't know what to do, right? There was no playbook during COVID. And so everyone was on equal playing field, except people who sort of knew how to deal with uncertainty. Like, this is why we keep going back to this emotional intelligence. Like, you need to build the muscle around how do I deal with situations where I can't predict what's going to happen. So people who can get intentional, who can understand the principles by which they want to operate, who know how to treat talent well, who know how to make decisions around, like, hey, I'm going to use my best guess that this is the technology we need because we sat down and figured out what our organization needs first, right? And then we're going to make decisions from that. We might make a mistake. We make mistakes all the time. We hire the wrong people. We use the wrong software. We have to go back, right? Like, this isn't new to us to make mistakes, but fear of making mistakes and not acting from that fear, I think, is much more dangerous than trying something out and be like, all right, well, that didn't work. Let's try something better. We learned.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I was listening to Nate Jones this morning as I was coming into work, and he was talking about something I think that runs kind of parallel to what you're saying, is that, we've gone through these engineering tasks, these technology kind of task of bringing in the AI, of the individual level of prompt engineering, and then the more wider, content engineering that you hear a lot of now. But he was saying that it's really about intent, and it has to be intent on the organizational level of where are we going, how are we, and it's, saying AI is not an IT issue, it's an organizational issue. And if you don't think of it as an organizational issue and have that, intent, and you're allowing the everyone to understand where is it that we're going, that, it doesn't matter how much you have AI on your desktop or in your processes, if it's not coordinated, if it's not intentional, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I think a lot in systems, right? I'm obsessed about how systems work and how different pieces fit together. And I go back to a lesson I got in college in dysfunctional psychology. And when you're looking at dysfunctional psychology and dysfunctional social family psychology, you can't just fix the person, right? Like, you have to fix the entire system. And whenever I read AI posts on LinkedIn or somebody's Substack, I just think, like, you're still stuck in this little rabbit hole of this piece of the system. And you're not realizing that all of it is happening all at once. right? Like everything is changing all at once. You have to think about all of the levers all at once. And I think like that's why like I love the pieces that you're doing right now, Greg, because they feel like contextual, right? They're actually looking at a story and a system and how does this fit into a fictionalized firm. And that's the conversation that we need to be having. Lawyers don't want to have that conversation, right? We're in many ways word surgeons, right? We come in, we slice this piece, we slice that piece, but like the organization or the individual client is a whole person. It's a human or it's a big company, right? We need to think in that sense, in the way that we're trying to find solutions for our clients and our organizations right now. The surgical approach is not working. It sounds really smart. Super
Yeah.
smart. Love it, right? But you're very much doing the same mistake that many academics make, which is they get very, very narrow and they're writing to an audience of 12. And like they don't necessarily apply their brilliant ideas, which are brilliant, right, to the bigger system. How does this fix the bigger problem that I'm trying to solve for? And so that's why like I always keep encouraging lawyers, get out of this mindset of like, what tool do I need? What problem are you solving?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's you've mentioned a few things that, human in the loop, emotional intelligence. Uh, what problem are you solving? And right now, we're really kind of thinking of things and, what can we throw AI at? What can AI be first? What can be automated? But maybe take a step back here. And what do you think that, do you think law firms are investing enough in the humans? uh, Compared to the software stack here? What is it that you think we just can't automate?
No, we're not investing in the humans. I remember being an associate and I remember being fully neglected on every single level of how you evaluate talent management and talent investment, right? Like it's the borderline of abuse in
Yeah,
in
but we're
many
throwing AI at that
environments.
now, so that
It's
that
solved.
problem's fixed. Yeah.
AI will help you coach your associates, right? And there is a piece of that, right? There's a piece when you're super lonely and you're trying to figure something out and you don't feel confident to go ask a senior lawyer, that AI can help coach you through that. But that doesn't mean that lawyers should be derelict in their duty to develop and lift up generations after generations, right? And we keep doing it. I saw this when I was on the professional development side at Practical Law, right? I was dealing with all of the AmLaw 200. I was talking to smaller firms. I was talking to in-house departments. There's this large gap between leaving law school and then learning how to be a lawyer. And it's very much a Hunger Games exercise, right? Good luck. I hope you get a good mentor. Otherwise, it's really your fault that you failed, even though we set you up to fail. And so I think AI bridges some of that gap, but not the entire gap. And especially right now, when we realize that the skills needed to be a good lawyer are no longer those rote skills that AI can now automate. They're the people skills, they're the operational skills, they're the client skills. They're how do you like critical thinking, judgment, how do you solve a complex matrix problem for your client, which is totally opposite of how we've trained associates before, which is here's a discrete problem, go solve it. No, I won't explain to you how it fits into the bigger picture. And so again, AI can solve that piece, but only for associates who are curious about it. And so the gap needs to be solved both by professional staff who can sort of lean into that and help contextualize that for students and young lawyers, but it also is necessary to have partner involvement. And I understand everyone is busy. We are all busy. We're
Yeah.
all professionals. So like my favorite was when somebody says, well, I'm very busy. Oh, well, I've been lounging around doing nothing, right? Like everyone is busy in our own ways of the tasks that are there. But we need to come together and sort of look at the entire flow of it to assign responsibility. And I think the challenge in the current commercial model of the law firm is it allows many senior lawyers to abdicate their duty as mentors, right? And stewards of their firms. And so part of this is like lawyers have to have that kind of moment where they look in the mirror and realize, oh, I need to do more because frankly, it actually will make my practice better, right? Like you will have more ready people to help you. You will be able to delegate to more people and it won't be constant running around and busy work. And also, P.S., you've got agency. I know this is a hard one, but you can decide what to say yes to and what to say no to. It doesn't feel that way when you're in the environment of a firm, but you are a highly trained professional with a lot of skills. And then you can decide how to allocate your time to different things.
Amen.
And again,
right,
like I
we
understand.
go.
Oh, we're done.
That's
We're
the
done. We
end.
solved it all. We solved it all.
We
No, and
solved it
again,
all.
I understand it's hard work. Like I
Yeah.
understand it's hard work. We have a really complex system based on control and codependency and perfectionism, and it's very hard to get rid of those mindsets in an organization full of those people and full of pressure from clients. But again, you learned how to do law. You can learn organizational management, and all of the rules are changing. So again, you can decide what those rules should be. What does, a humane workplace look like that trains lawyers for the future? How are you going to pass your practice on? How are you going to make sure your clients are
It's
taken care
succession
of?
planning.
Right. Like that
Like,
one
what's that?
that one, yeah, that
How
topic
do you-
that's always
how
at
do
a
you
bar
spell that?
association event. Yeah, exactly. Right. So again, there are so many resources within your own firm that I think it begs the question for everyone inside of a law firm to ask, how do we do this better in a systemic way, right? Do I have senior lawyers who have lots of knowledge who would love to be involved in these efforts? How do I involve them to help mentor young lawyers and also learn the technology? Just because they're at the end of their practice doesn't mean that they're not curious.
I want to dig into this a little bit more about what the more senior people should and could be doing, what the juniors can be doing, and sort of how AI ties into this. So, we look at so many times I see this, it's like it's AI is looked at like, it just creates faster horses for billing efficiency. And, that in itself I think is a stressor for, people who have billable practices. But, can AI be a tool for for junior well-being, or for these, can it be seen as sort of a way to update your practice, in a way that maybe there's sort of less stress that way? um you know if we don't have an apprenticeship model, or we have a revised apprenticeship model, and there goes Greg, bye. He doesn't like what I'm saying.
No.
So, if we have, do we need to modify that apprenticeship model? And again, if partners are needed more in terms of being involved, if we use AI to maybe re-swizzle, like how, whether there's unbillable time or not, how do we make that happen? Like, how do we kind of get partners comfortable with the fact that, like, you could bill a different way, still make money, and then you have time to sort of do this operational work?
100%, right. This is the message that I've been trying to deliver for 2 decades. It falls on deaf ears often. I think some of the urgency now, however, is the fact that leveraged pyramid model is changing. So we're hiring fewer associates, right? Clients are serious about not paying for juniors in a different way, right? And now they can automate some of that internally as well. And so you have to have a real discussion right now with leadership and firms about what does it look like when we're no longer using the triangle model? Right? How is it that we're going to train these lawyers? And it's a very serious question. So looking at alternative talent models for different kinds of people doing different kinds of tasks. So one thing that I keep suggesting to people is not all law students want to be practicing lawyers. So what if instead of just a rotation around practice groups, you're going to do a rotation around various roles within a firm? There are many hybrid opportunities for AI native law
More and more.
students, right? More and more, who want to understand the practice of law, who may want to practice, but may not want to practice, right? So you as a firm have to think about, how do I create these opportunities for people who might want to be in knowledge management positions, people who might want to be the bridge between the technology and the practicing lawyers, right? So it ends up creating these hybrid kinds of positions, which are very new to a firm. We love silos. We love telling people exactly what they're doing. Stay in your lane. I remember being told, stay in my lane over and over as a junior associate when I was talking about knowledge management or not having to repeat the same memo over and over, or business development opportunities, right? Like, stay in your lane. This is not the time to stay in your lane. This is actually a time to rethink people's different talents and skills and where to put them in your firm. You're going to need fewer lawyers to do the traditional lawyer tasks, especially as we figure out what those tasks are going to be in the future, right? Again, you're in this change moment, which means you have a lot of opportunity to experiment. Like, this is when you should be experimenting, is when everything is transitioning to the new way of things. So yeah, so bring in junior associates and see if they're interested in doing some things with your innovation group, right? Or with your KM group, or thinking about how this fits into professional development. Ask them how they want to learn. You know, many of them like have had to adapt from Zoom school to AI and through that particular like ladder. Let them help you figure out how this training should go, because the old way has some merit, but it currently doesn't fully apply to what we're trying to do. And so that's where I'd like more and more firms to think broadly about their talent pool beyond professional staff with very specific tasks and lanes, and then practicing lawyers with very specific tasks and lanes. That should begin to come together. And frankly, it makes for better client service when your lawyers understand how your clients operate, but also how the technology works, and then opportunities to be able to come together with your clients, teach them some of these things, share how you're using these tools to deliver better client service. Back to relationships, right? Like, how do I make this relationship better? I show that I'm leveling up, that I care about you, that I care about delivering a better product.
It will be very interesting to see how firms kind of, what direction they move in with this, because, as you said, I think it's very hard for many to kind of wrap their heads around that very fluid type of model that you're talking about. People like to know what they
But it's a
know,
mindset shift, right?
it is
mindset
very
shift.
much a mindset shift. You just got to be able to be okay with that.
I would
And
also I would also encourage folks to see what other kinds of firms are doing. I know as lawyers, we love being a little bit snobby about, well, my peer firm isn't doing this, so I'm not going to do it. Or my firm is bigger and more complex, and I would never do it that way. It's, little humility goes a long way. And so we talked about this earlier, but like, what are smaller firms doing? What are solo firms doing? What are plaintiffs firms doing? There's so much innovation happening across the ecosystem that for especially big firms, especially am law firms, to only focus on what other am law firms are doing, you're missing the opportunity, right? Like, you're trying to get your creative juices flowing. What does this firm do? How does it solve for something that I also have a problem around? How can I take this learning and apply it to my firm with my scale and my intentional objective, right? Like, get excited. Start learning and see if there's a solution out there in a context that maybe you didn't think was relevant to you because of the nature of your firm. It's all ideas. It's all, it's all learning. And we forget that. Like, you can apply it in various ways and use that really talented brain you have that you use for your clients for your own firm.
yeah, and look outside your little sphere, and other organizations that are, either kind of have to adapt or that are just doing it, and just sort of see if that's something that you can use.
Yeah.
Okay, so you built the Psi Leadership Program at Yale, and now you're hosting PLI's How to Navigate Law School podcast, to kind of decompress the unwritten rules of legal education. You've noted that law schools, still many law schools still rely heavily on the 1970s teaching methods that, honestly failed to prepare lawyers for AI-driven future. We had like 4 people on from maybe a couple months ago, from law firm libraries, and got a real mix in terms of whether they were even allowing students to use generative AI. And again, the decisions were based on fear. So what's the single most damaging rule that law students are internalizing, given this? And it's going to prevent them from being more agile and more empathetic practitioners when they do enter firm life.
I'm sure I'll get flack for this, but don't follow what your faculty are telling you around this for the most part. If there are people who don't experiment with AI, who aren't trying to understand it, and they're telling you what to do regarding AI, they're probably not the right person, right? They're not
Yeah.
the right voice if they're not willing to try to understand it. And so I think a lot of academics approach this from a philosophical lens. Many of them approach it from a this is too dangerous lens. Unfortunately, Pandora's box is open. So it's not going to get closed.
Hmm.
And we have to figure out how to engage with this. And so your school might have someone who's leading some sort of lab or innovation center or entrepreneurship center. Try to pursue that. See if there's something like that that exists on the main campus if you're associated with a larger university. Look at what other law schools are doing. There are incredible examples from Suffolk to Vanderbilt who are where there's initiative and there's information online about those learnings and maybe even opportunities to listen to lectures. So get really selfish around your own education and don't decide that what your professors say is the word. I
Yeah.
think that like part of the struggle of law school, I struggled with this. I hear it over and over from law students, is that you are sort of forced into this mold, right? Like you think broadly and deeply, and you're curious before you come to law school, and then you come to law school and you're taught to think one way. And
Hmm.
that one way is how your faculty is telling you to think. And then you're made to feel naive or sometimes even stupid for thinking a different way, right? And so I encourage students, don't lose yourself in the process when you're trying to be convinced to think one way, especially right now where there's so much information out there and so many thoughtful people talking about these issues. It is incumbent upon you to understand these tools. And there are a lot of really smart people thinking out loud across law schools about how to do this well. Follow those people, right?
Hmm.
Continue to be inspired, even if the people at your law school may not be as imaginative as you hope that they were, right? So I think the biggest struggle in law school is just following the way that like the bigger group think that faculty tend to entrench inside of traditional law school models, especially people who aren't engaged with these
Yeah.
tools.
If you're in, if you are a student and you're in a situation like that, I mean, there's so many free resources out there to be able to sort of try this and experiment with it. And I'll tell you, I mean, firms are expecting incoming lawyers to know these things. I think they're kind of depending on it, quite honestly. So, it is really imperative that, just get out there and try it. Like, just try it.
There's also an opportunity for vendors. And I've said this over and
Hmm.
over again for vendors and for law firms to create that bridge because many schools don't have the resources or the
Right.
knowledge to create this kind of training. And so there are a lot of very smart vendors out there who said, we'll shortcut this, right? Like we'll offer this to law schools if they want it. And if they don't want it, we'll offer it to students and they can directly get it. And so play that bridge. Play that bridge if you are someone who has a really good resource and you want law student feedback. There are lots of groups of very excited law students who want to learn these things, and you don't have to go through the administrative machine to get them engaged or get their feedback on something. It also
Hmm.
behooves law firms to do this. It behooves them to do workshops on AI because it signals to students that they are thinking about this and practicing what they preach. And it also gets them students who are excited about what they're excited about as a recruiting pipeline, right? Like
Hmm.
it's a mirroring kind of signaling device. And so when you're spending millions of dollars on recruiting efforts, wouldn't you want to be more deliberate in finding people who share your values and share how you think about innovation directly in law school? Like I would think so.
Hmm. So, before we get to the crystal ball question, we'd like to know what kind of resources that you rely on to keep up with all the rapid changes, in legal tech and AI and the business of law and all the things we've been talking about.
So yes, I have a few things I check regularly. I obviously Geek and Review, and
Obviously.
I love this podcast. I love Jen Leonard and Bridget McCormack's podcast
Right.
for PLI, like very practical.
Mhm.
I love everything that comes out of Bob Ambrogi, so Law Sites. I love Artificial Lawyer, right? So I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I joke with people, it's like my sim, right? Like I live in the world of LinkedIn. So there are a lot of really interesting people talking about these concepts there. But those blogs, as well as those two podcasts, are sort of my core. But yeah, like I would encourage law students and lawyers who don't spend much time on LinkedIn to start finding the people who are writing about these issues and follow their ideas, because we talked about this before. Like many of us who think and live and breathe this just keep throwing out pieces of our thoughts on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is much more fun than it used to be, especially if you can find the corner of your people to engage on these ideas. And so it's the only way really to keep up with it is to talk to other people who are playing with these things. And there are a few law firm partners who I think now have Substacks, right? Who talk about their direct experiences with this. And so I always encourage frontline lawyers to see what other frontline lawyers are doing, that it is possible, and get excited from that.
Um, so Anastasia, we are now at the crystal ball question time, and wanted to focus in on your time as Chief Innovation Officer at the University of Utah. And being in Utah, it also, they have the regulatory sandbox that they have allowed others to play in with the alternative legal services providers. And you've noted that the current legal model is failing the public needs that we have. So pull out your crystal ball and look into the future, but think about your past and there in Utah. And if generative AI handles this initial triage of the contextual window for the public, and sandboxes allow for people that aren't lawyers to own legal businesses, what exactly is the role and economic value of a traditional JD in, say, 5 or 10 years from now?
I love this question because it gets to the root of lawyer insecurity.
Yeah.
Many of us don't realize just how smart we are and the kinds of skills we've accumulated, especially because we work around other lawyers and we're self-deprecating and we diminish the value and the judgment that we bring to complex problems. Part of that, I think, is because the business model of lawyering has gotten us to do things that are well below our capacity, right? And the level of our intelligence. And so now that we can automate some of those rote things that frankly shouldn't be done by a highly educated professional, you can focus on the things that should be, right? Which is client relationships, understanding how the pieces fit together with the problems that your clients are coming to you for, anticipating things that are going to happen for them, being a real advisor, right? And exercising the judgment and wisdom that you've developed from years of practice to help them navigate complex situations, right? This is now you are the person who's helping your clients navigate uncertainty without being in the weeds of turning document changes, right? Or having to go through, how does this update exactly go through? Let's write a client alert. You're not in fire drill mode. You're in proactive advisor mode. You can now think about your client's industry, your client's bigger problem, new and nuanced solutions that haven't existed before. In many ways, I think it allows us to free up the true cognitive abilities for lawyers to focus on real problems. And ideally, right, ideally help with the systemic problems. So many public interest lawyers are looking at access to justice, and they don't have the benefit of their private bar colleagues because they're too busy in the weeds of these constantly busy problems. And we need to be together as, 1.3 million lawyers in the US? We need to solve these problems together. It can't just be a handful of lawyers who know there's an access to justice gap that's at 92%, know that that's a problem, but not put their brilliant brains toward it. So back to systemic thinking, let's get all of the smart people in a room. Let's get the helpers together to figure out how to allocate service provision, whether that's paraprofessionals, whether that is AI and information that's readily available, right? Or whether that's a highly sophisticated lawyer who needs to manage a very complex appellate process. So all of that, it's leveling up to use your highest and best skills, which I think are around advisory work, anticipatory work, looking around corners, and the judgment from wisdom.
Yeah. And I love how you snuck fire drill mode into the conversation there. Well done.
You're welcome.
Well, Anastasia Boyko, thank you very much. It's good to see you again. Thanks for coming in and talking with us about legal practice, well-being, education, so many more things. It's great to talk to you.
It
Thank
was a
you.
treat. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen to the Geek in Review podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn and Substack.
And Anastasia, I think I know what the answer is going to be, but if listeners want to learn more or reach out to you, where's the best place for them to go?
You can find my sim on LinkedIn.
And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry, and bye, everybody.
Thanks.